Israel's security cabinet has approved plans to take control of Gaza City in the north of the enclave following an hours-long meeting that ended in the early hours of Friday.
At least 3 people were injured in the Ukrainian cities of Kharkiv and Sumy overnight following Russian drone attacks.
Israel's security cabinet has approved plans to take over Gaza City in the north of the enclave. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office announced the plans following the end of an hours-long meeting which started on Thursday and ran into the early hours of Friday. The plan is yet another major escalation in Israel's 22-month-long military offensive on Gaza. Just before the cabinet convened to discuss the controversial plan, Netanyahu said that Israel planned to take control of the entirety of the besieged territory. He did, however, deny any intention of taking ownership of the enclave long-term, stating that Israel only wants to establish a security perimeter, but won't be a governing body. The Israeli premier said that eventually the Strip would be handed over to a coalition of Arab forces who will govern it after Hamas is removed from power. Hamas has slammed Netanyahu's plans for Gaza, saying it amounts to a coup. U.S. President Donald Trump did not oppose the plan to seize all of Gaza, saying it was up to Israel to make that decision. The war has so far claimed the lives of more than 61,250 Palestinians, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. The UN says Israel's war has also displaced 2 million people, some multiple times, and driven many towards famine.
World leaders criticised Israel's decision to seize control of Gaza City, warning the move risks worsening the already catastrophic humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Security Cabinet approved the controversial plan early Friday, marking a new escalation in the country's nearly 2-year-long war against Hamas. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the move in strong terms, saying that Israel's decision to further escalate its offensive in Gaza is wrong. The UN called for Israel's plan to be immediately halted.
On all evidence to date, this further escalation will result in more massive forced displacement, more killing, more unbearable suffering, senseless destruction and atrocity crimes. The war in Gaza must end now.
Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid denounced the plan as against the advice of military leadership. IDF Chief of General Staff Ayal Zamir had warned it would endanger the lives of hostages and further stretch the military.
Berlin will suspend arms exports to Israel that could be used in the Gaza Strip, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz announced Friday. The move marks Germany's historically staunch supporter of Israel's clearest shift yet in response to Israel's military campaign. Merz said the decision came after Israel's security cabinet announced it would take over Gaza City. The decision impacts future arms exports and stops short of a full weapons embargo. Merz reiterated Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas, but criticized the humanitarian consequences of Israel's planned offensive. Germany is Israel's second largest arms supplier behind the United States and has so far hesitated to criticize or take concrete steps against its actions in the Gaza Strip. 52 exceptionally rare lizards from the Aeolian Islands were hatched at the reptile house of Rome's Biopark Zoo as part of a conservation project aimed at preventing their extinction. Lizards from the islands are considered an endangered species classified among those at highest risk of extinction in the Mediterranean basin. The tiny reptiles born at Rome Zoo are only a few centimeters long and have to be cared for in a special nursery within a restricted access area of the reptile house. The zoo said they are not yet visible to the public as they need an environment that preserves their tranquility in order to grow. It said their hatching was an extraordinary event, which took place in the framework of the European-funded project Life Eolizard, which aims at reducing the risk of extinction of endangered species. The program combines conservation in a controlled environment and in nature. The lizards will be introduced to the Sicilian archipelago next spring.
British border authorities have detained the first group of migrants under a pilot plan that will send some who crossed the English Channel on small boats back to France. According to the UK Home Office, the migrants were detained on Wednesday, the day the program came into force, and will be held at immigration removal centres until they are returned to France.
The groundbreaking principle here is that people can be returned to France if they arrive on these dangerous and illegal small boats. In return, we will take people who have applied legally through a legal process, been through security checks, but we should be returning people who have made these illegal crossings.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron announced a deal last month. While the pilot involves a limited number of people, UK officials suggest the deal is a breakthrough because it sets a precedent. However, critics say the program will do little to deter migrants because the numbers returned to France are small and loopholes will allow people who enter Britain illegally to remain as they pursue human rights claims. At least 10 people have been killed and 33 others are missing after flash floods in Yuzhong County in China's northwestern Gansu province. According to China's state broadcaster CCTV, heavy rain since Thursday have triggered severe flooding and left around 4,000 people stranded. Local authorities said Lanzhou city alone had received 195 millimeters of rain by early Friday. Several parts of China are being battered by heavy rains, with President Xi Jinping urging all-out rescue and flood prevention efforts.
US President Donald Trump is hosting the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia at the White House on Friday evening for what he called a historic peace summit. The two former Soviet republics, which have seen almost 4 decades of conflict, could finally settle for peace in the region, notably away from Moscow. It's also an opportunity for Trump to present himself as a global peacemaker, fulfilling a key election promise he made on his campaign trail last November. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev met for their first bilateral meeting in July, with the aim of finalizing a peace treaty. The critical issue of the Zangezur corridor, a proposed transport route designed to connect Azerbaijan's mainland with its enclave, which borders Turkey via Armenian territory, remains. Armenia and Azerbaijan have been sworn enemies for decades, going to war twice over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region, which has killed and displaced thousands.
Spain has started August with a sweltering heat wave that, according to the state's meteorological agency, will last until at least Wednesday, 13th August. Authorities placed active alerts in practically the whole country, warning that temperatures could reach up to 43 degrees Celsius in some regions. Highs of 36 degrees Celsius to 38 degrees Celsius are expected this Friday in most of the interior of the peninsula, with peaks of up to 40 degrees Celsius in the valleys of Tagus, Guadiana, and Guadalquivir rivers.
Sí, mucha calor, casi a 40 grados, pero que esto ya lo sabíamos. Así que tenemos que prepararnos, hidratarnos mucho, tomar agua, líquidos. Y eso, però spero aguantare.
Faccio per il caldo, mi sono messo l'acqua in testa sperando di resistere, di non svenire, di non star male, però è davvero faticoso.
Extreme heat is also expected to affect France, Italy, Portugal, and the Central Balkans over the coming days as a heat dome makes its way across the region.
Countries across Europe are grappling with severe heat waves. People living in urban areas are particularly badly hit. This is due to the heat island effect, the phenomenon where urban areas experience significantly higher temperatures than their rural counterparts during heat waves. Scientists found surface temperatures in cities were sometimes up to 10 to 15 degrees higher than in their rural surroundings during summer. These figures are particularly stark given the sheer number of people subjected to these temperatures. Almost 40% of the EU's population lives in cities, and this figure is only expected to rise in the coming years. Additionally, this phenomenon has a dire impact on people's health.
People that are mostly affected are children and elderly people that already have some kind of illnesses, for example, respiratory illnesses or cardiovascular illnesses. They are most affected by this heat. And certainly the urban heat island effect plays mostly at night. So when you don't cool down during the night, well, this also can have negative health effects.
This heat island effect is mainly due to urban land use. Cities are made of asphalt and concrete, materials that absorb the intense solar radiation to which they are exposed. This heat is retained and then radiated after the sun sets, which is why temperatures cool down less. However, adaptation is possible. Solutions include making cities greener. Trees like these offer shade, which helps people cool down. Plants also work as nature's air conditioner, taking water from the ground through their roots and then releasing it into the air as vapor. But adaptation only works locally, and alone it isn't enough.
As long as global warming will persist, we will see higher temperatures, not only in cities, but everywhere around the globe. So indeed, the urban heat island effect will also increase towards the future with additional climate change. So it's also important to reduce our emissions as fast as possible.
The warning from experts is clear. Either tackle the root cause or face cities becoming unlivable.